Morning sunlight spills through the tall, cold panes of the courtroom, slicing across the shiny wood floor in sharp lines. The varnish smell mixes faintly with coffee and tension that seems to cling to the air like a heavy fog. Kody Brown walks into the room first, his steps measured, deliberate, but each movement betrays a subtle unease. He smooths the sleeve of his suit, wipes his hands on his pants, and finally settles into his seat up front, flanked by Robyn, Christine, Janelle, and Meri. Robyn sits closest to him, her hands folded tightly on her lap, fingernails digging into her palms. She sends nervous glances toward Christine, who sits perfectly poised, jaw tight, a mask of composure that barely conceals the anger bubbling beneath. Janelle leans back slightly, but the tension in her shoulders is unmistakable, while Meri fidgets with her ring, staring at the floor as if willing herself invisible. The courtroom feels like a stage, each of them actors in a drama they never auditioned for, but one that has been building for years. The judge enters, robes swooshing with each step. With eyes sharp and commanding, he lets the gavel strike against the shiny wood bench, in a crack that resounds across the silent room. Court is now in session, he announces in a deep, deliberate voice. Simple as the phrase may sound, it bites through the invisible veil of fear and anticipation that had fallen over the room. An attorney rises from the plaintiff's side, the sound of his polished shoes echoing on the floor as he makes his way to the center. He adjusts his tie, clears his throat, and starts speaking in a calm tone, with tension held like a brewing storm just beneath the surface. Your Honor, he says, today we bring to light truths that have been kept in the dark for far too long. Secrets, quietly festering behind closed doors, now brought into the light, with consequences none of us can afford to ignore. Kody swallows, his Adam's apple bobbing nervously. He turns to Robyn, whose eyes are welling up as she clutches the edge of her notebook, the slight quake in those fingers belying her effort at steadiness. Christine sits with her eyes resolutely ahead, squinting as though to bore through the courtroom walls with a look. Janelle makes a small shift, a tiny sigh escaping her lips, while Meri's expression is inscrutable, detached, yet weighted with anticipation. The first witness is called, a long-standing family friend who has seen the Browns through both private joy and secrets. The courtroom collectively leans forward in a charged air of anticipation. The witness mounts the stand. He adjusts the microphone, looks at the jury box, and then fixes his gaze on the family standing before him. I have known this family for years, he begins, voice steady but imbued with emotion. And I have seen the cracks forming beneath the surface. I have seen loyalties shift quietly, alliances that no one spoke about openly. And yet, I never thought these hidden truths would come to define this courtroom today. His eyes flick toward Kody, whose jaw tightens in response. Robyn bites her lip to stop a quiver from escaping, and Christine's fingers tap impatiently against her leg. The witness continues, relating private conversations overheard, small betrayals, and the moments that built tension over the years. Every word falls like a drop of water on hot stone, eroding the fragile facade of unity. There were decisions made, he adds softly, that affected more than just the family. Choices that, if revealed, could change the course of everyone's lives. The attorney then produces a piece of evidence, a set of emails and messages that show meetings and discussions that none of the wives knew about. The judge picks up the printed pages and scans them with a measured, disapproving eye. The courtroom is dead silent, every eye on Kody and his wives. The weight of the revelation presses down on them. Robyn's hands shake slightly as she reaches for the folder, whispering to Kody, I can't believe this. Christine doesn't react outwardly, but her eyes flash with something that is hard to define. Anger, suspicion, perhaps a mix of both. Janelle bites her lip and exhales slowly while Meri shifts in her seat, her hands clutching the edge of her chair. The tension is almost suffocating. The witness explains that some of the emails indicate secret meetings and undisclosed decisions pertaining to family dynamics, custody matters, and financial arrangements. Kody leans forward, his forehead creasing, eyes darting to each of his wives, trying to gauge their reactions, searching for any sign of betrayal or support. The attorney presses on, his tone sharp, but controlled. "Were you aware of these discussions, Mr. Brown?" the attorney asks, his voice rising slightly. Kody's lips thin into a line. I was not, he says, though the uncertainty within his eyes betrays a flicker of doubt. Robyn exhales softly, seeking to steady herself, while Christine's smirk is barely noticeable. That dangerous stillness before a storm. Janelle's hands twist in her lap, and Meri looks sideways at the judge, wide-eyed with unspoken concern. The session continues, witness after witness, each adding fragments to a growing picture of tension and hidden agendas. Small confrontations emerge. Christine challenges a point directly, her voice sharp, almost cutting, while Robyn interjects, trying to defend Kody, but faltering under the weight of her own emotions. Janelle tries to mediate quietly. Her tone is soothing, yet tense, while Meri's presence is almost ghostly, hovering on the edge of each conversation, weighted down by unspoken fear. Every revelation has the impact of a thunderclap. The courtroom shows its reaction through minimal gasps, one or two whispered exchanges, a foot shuffle, in the little nods and head shakes. Cameras capture every nuance, every flicker in emotions, while outside, reporters exchange whispers, sensing the magnitude of what's unfolding. As the morning session edges toward its close, a particularly damning piece of evidence is introduced. A recorded conversation between two of the wives, discussing decisions that excluded one of the others. The audio plays softly through the courtroom speakers, though every word lands like a punch as Kody shifts uncomfortably. Robyn covers her mouth in shock, and Christine leans back, a small, triumphant smile playing at her lips. The gavel strikes again, brought down by the judge, and instantly the murmurs die away. "We will recess until the afternoon session," he says, as if allowing no argument. The echo of the gavel leaves the room shaking with tension. Outside the courtroom, anticipation builds. Reporters lean in, capturing whispered statements. Family members cluster in small groups, their faces masks of anxiety and reflection. In the hallway, subtle glances and words are exchanged, insinuating that alliances are questioned and loyalties tested. Christine exchanges a few words with an unexpected visitor, her words hushed but urgent. Even Robyn and Kody, curious and apprehensive about what is being whispered behind closed doors. The first session is closed, but the repercussions of the revelations still linger. Each character leaves with a weight on his or her shoulders, emotions swirling, betrayal, fear, defiance, anxiety mingling in a storm that is far from over. The camera pans across the courtroom one more time, capturing the faces of the Brown family. Kody, tense and anxious. Robyn, teetering on the edge of tears. Christine, cool and calculated. Janelle, quietly distressed. And Meri, a mix of shock and apprehension. As the doors close, the audience is left with one question. What secrets will the afternoon session reveal? And just how far will the fractures in this family go before the truth finally comes into focus? The tension hangs thick, a storm about to break, leaving every viewer on the edge of their seat, unable to turn away. The courtroom reconvenes after a tense lunch break, but the heaviness in the air is almost suffocating now. The sunbeams that filter through tall windows do little for the oppressive atmosphere that has fallen over the room. Kody Brown sits straight up in his chair, his shoulders squared, hands clasped tightly in his lap. And yet every little movement speaks volumes of his nervous anticipation. Robyn's hands shake slightly as she fingers the corner of her notebook, eyes darting nervously in Christine's direction, who sits with her lips pressed tightly into an unreadable thin line. Janelle leans slightly forward, as if to appear casual, the slight tremble in her fingers giving her away. Meri, ever quiet, sits with a detached expression, but sharp, observant eyes take in every minute detail of the room. The judge enters once more, robes swishing, gavel in hand. "Court is now in session," he announces, his voice echoing through the silent room, carrying an authority that makes even the most composed person pause. The gavel strikes sharply, cutting through the tense air like a lightning bolt, and every head turns toward the front. The next witness is called, an old confidant of the Brown family. His very presence quickens the pace in the courtroom. For years he has watched their private dealings, someone who knows the subtle dynamics that have kept the Brown family both united and divided. As he approaches the stand, adjusting his microphone, his eyes scan the room before finally resting on the Brown family. "I've been close to this family for over a decade," he begins, his voice steady but weighted with emotion. "And I've seen the tensions, the quiet disagreements, and the alliances that were never spoken about openly. I never imagined, though, that these private moments would end up being so pivotal, so damning, in a courtroom like this." His eyes linger on Kody, who shifts slightly in his seat, jaw tight, hands clenching and unclenching. Robyn bites her lip in an attempt to stop a quiver of emotion, while Christine stares sharply and calculatingly, her body language radiating controlled anger. Janelle tugs at her shoulders in an uncomfortable chair, and Meri's fingers drum softly against the armrest, betraying interior anxiety. The courtroom seems smaller somehow, the walls closing in as the witness continues to speak, each word a brushstroke painting the Brown family in a new, tense light. He recalls conversations he had overheard, private admissions of guilt, and moments of secrecy that no one expected to come into the open. Each word falls like a hammer to cold stone, gradually shattering the fragile facade of unity in this family. "There were decisions made behind closed doors," he says quietly, almost reverently, "that affected everyone here, and not all of them were for the best." The lawyer gets up and introduces several pieces of evidence. Emails, messages, even photographs, all put together to point out the betrayals, secrets, and unspoken alliances. The judge bends over the documents, softly furrowing his brow. The courtroom fills with tense silence as page after page is shown, and every word hangs in the air. Robyn's eyes widen in shock as she read a particularly incriminating message. She leans into Kody and whispers, "I didn't know about this." Kody shifts uncomfortably, his hand clenching on the edge of the bench as Christine smirks, a subtle, threatening expression that signals satisfaction at the turmoil unfolding. Janelle's lips are pressed tight, and Meri's eyes dart between the judge and the evidence, taking it all in with a quiet intensity. These communications, the witness reveals, hint at secret decisions, meetings that some wives were excluded from, financial arrangements made without full disclosure, and alliances that have quietly formed under the radar. Subtle gasps, murmurs, and the occasional shuffling of feet greet each revelation. Cameras capture every glance, every expression, and every flicker of emotion as reporters furiously scribble notes outside the courtroom doors. The tension rises when the attorney asks Kody directly about one particularly damning message. "Were you aware of these meetings, Mr. Brown?" Kody hesitates, swallowing hard, his throat dry. "No," he admits finally, though a flicker of doubt crosses his eyes. Robyn exhales quietly, attempting to steady herself, while Christine leans back slightly, her posture relaxed, but her eyes sharp, calculating every response. Janelle fidgets in her seat, the strain of silent judgment heavy on her shoulders, and Meri's hand trembles ever so slightly as she taps her fingers on her notebook. The next piece of evidence shows a secretly taped conversation, an audio clip of two of the wives discussing a decision that the others did not know about. The room falls silent as the clip plays, the soft crackle of voices cutting through the air like an invisible knife. Robyn's face falls, her eyes welling up with threatened tears, while Christine's lips curl into the faintest of smiles. Kody fidgets, and Janelle clenches her hands in her lap, fighting to keep her emotions at bay. Meri listens, her jaw clenched, her eyes narrowing as the words are spoken. The attorney continues to break down messages and reveal hidden alliances and betrayals many years in the making. Each revelation sends a wave across the courtroom. The wives look at one another in equal parts fear, shock, and anger. Kody's composed exterior cracks slightly as he leans forward, trying to make sense of the mounting tension. Robyn's hand finds his in a silent offering of support, though her anxiety is palpable. Christine observes the reactions like a predator surveying its prey, ever sharp and calculating, as Janelle quietly tries to mediate, her voice soft but firm. Meri finally speaks, her voice quiet but steady. "I need to know, why wasn't I included?" The words hang in the air, loaded with years of frustration, betrayal, and hurt. The judge raises an eyebrow, and the attorney seizes the moment to press further, revealing the motive behind the secret communications, a plan that could dramatically shift custody arrangements and financial control within the family. The courtroom reacts instantly. Robyn gasps softly, covering her mouth. Kody leans back, eyes wide. Christine's smirk is replaced by a look of calculated worry. Janelle's hands shake, and Meri's lips compress as the full weight of the revelation hits her. The tension almost becomes unbearable, the air thick with emotion, fear, and anticipation. As the session wears on, the witness drops another bombshell. Someone within the family has been secretly gathering evidence, keeping tabs on the other's actions, and preparing for a move that could upend the balance of power entirely. The courtroom murmurs. Whispers ripple through like leaves in the wind, and the judge calls the room to order. Cameras capture every subtle shift in expression, every quiver of emotion, every flicker of reaction. Tense, almost unbearable, the last moments of the session play out. The judge signals for a brief recess, and the family steps out into the hallway. Conversations are hushed, but the energy in the room is electric. Christine exchanges a few words with an unexpected visitor, her tone urgent and deliberate. Robyn watches nervously. Kody looks puzzled and concerned, and Janelle and Meri exchange uneasy glances. The hallway becomes a stage of its own. Quiet confrontations, whispered revelations, and subtle gestures hint at alliances, betrayals, and secrets yet to be revealed. Outside, reporters hover, scribbling furiously into notebooks. Camera lenses capture every fleeting glance, expression, and movement. Social media is abuzz, speculating about the courtroom drama unfolding inside. And inside, the family Brown will need to navigate the maelstrom of revelation, emotion, and secrets brought to light. A low murmur rises as the doors close for recess, leaving the audience on the edge of their seats, their hearts pounding with anticipation. The tension remains, a storm hardly contained, promising more revelations, confrontations, and emotional explosions in the next session. Each character has their own burden from the past, uncertainty of the present, and fear of what is to come. Cliffhanger. A whispered conversation between Christine and an unknown visitor hints at a secret that may completely alter the course of the trial. Who is involved, and how is this revelation going to affect the Brown family? The next session promises answers, but at what cost? The afternoon session begins, and the courtroom almost seems stifling. The sun has moved and casts long shadows across the polished wooden floors. The tension in the room feels heavier, almost palpable. Kody Brown sits rigid, his hands clenched on the bench in front of him. His eyes dart nervously between his wives. Robyn sits close by, notebook in hand, her fingernails digging into the pages of the book as if anchoring herself to this moment. Christine sits back, straight and tall, her chin lifted high, while a sharp glare masks the storm of emotions boiling behind her eyes. Janelle leans slightly forward, her lips pressed into a thin line, while Meri's hands stay folded tightly in her lap, her fingers twitching with inner turmoil. The judge enters, and the familiar echo of the gavel punctuates the air. "Court is in session," he says. His voice is even, unyielding, and commanding of attention. The room goes silent, the weight of expectation upon every witness, attorney, and family member. Attention shifts to Christine, who stands up. Her heels click sharply against the glossy floor, a rhythmic reminder of the gravity of what she is about to do. She stands tall, her hands grasping at the edge of the witness stand, and speaks in a trembling yet steadfast voice. "I trusted this family," she starts off, her eyes briefly darting to Kody. But sometimes trust isn't enough. Secrets have consequences, and today we face them. Kody swallows hard, his throat tight. Robyn exhales softly, dabbing at the corner of her eye, while Janelle shifts slightly, struggling to appear composed, though not quite able to conceal her anxiety. Meri's face is pale, and she presses her lips together, as though trying to prevent words she doesn't want to speak from escaping. The courtroom leans in. This testimony is not just about facts, but about emotions, loyalty, and betrayal. Christine goes on to name specific instances where decisions were made without transparency, naming those moments when Robyn, Janelle, or Meri was excluded from big family discussions. Every word falls like a hammer. The room is tense. Audiences can almost feel the air filling with silent anticipation. Christine stops, takes a deep breath as her eyes well up. "I have proof," she says, as she pulls a folder out of her bag. The judge leans forward, interested, while the courtroom is waiting in collective suspense. The folder holds emails, texts, and photographs, each showing instances of secrecy, clandestine meetings, and alliances that no one knew existed. The attorney guiding Christine's testimony presents each piece with due respect, highlighting its emotional and legal impact. The courtroom reacts almost viscerally. Robyn gasps softly, putting her hand over her mouth in shock. Kody leans back, a flicker of fear dancing on his face. Christine's lips curl into a small smirk. Satisfaction and the intensity of the moment mix in her expression. Janelle presses her palms together as if trying to hold herself together while Meri's gaze stays fixed, her mind racing with the implications she still cannot voice. The first bombshell revelation comes in the form of a recorded conversation between two of the wives, discussing a decision that had been deliberately hidden from the others. The audio plays softly through the courtroom speakers, but the words hit like thunder. Robyn's eyes widen, tears threatening to spill. Christine's expression hardens, eyes narrowing with a calculated intensity. Kody shifts uneasily, hands tightening on the edge of the bench, knuckles white. Janelle exhales shakily, trying to suppress the tremor in her voice, and Meri's hands shake slightly as she clutches her folder. The testimony grows more dramatic as Christine describes motives for the hidden communications. She explains these are not just secretive, but strategic more ways of consolidating influence and control within the family. Every revelation falls like a brick on fragile glass, breaking the perception of unity the family has long presented to the public. The attorney presses Kody for an explanation of how he knew about what was going on. Kody's face tightens, his jaw clenched. "I didn't know the extent of it," he confesses, though in his tone he sounds unsure himself. Robyn leans slightly toward him, reassuringly whispering, though her anxiety is palpable. Christine crosses her arms, a subtle gesture of dominance, while Janelle looks down, trying to steady her emotions. Meri's eyes dart to the judge, wordlessly seeking guidance or clarity in the storm of revelations. The courtroom is electric with tension. It's a long-standing family friend who knows intimate details of private family moments, and he now takes the stand as the next witness. His testimony supports Christine's assertion and adds new depth. He talks of secret decisions made, private meetings not attended by all wives, and emotional confrontations that were kept well away from the eyes of the public. Each anecdote is precise, calculated, and emotionally charged. Each one leaves the courtroom on edge. The witness describes a particularly troubling incident where one of the major family decisions was made in secrecy, directly impacting custody arrangements and financial control. Tears well up in Robyn's eyes as she wipes one from her cheek. Kody shifts in his seat, his face pale, while Christine's smirk turns into a slight frown, the first crack in her confident exterior. Janelle leans back, trying to breathe through the weight of it, while Meri's hands shake with her clutched bag. He continues with his presentation of evidence, a series of messages between some family members that were used to coordinate their activities without telling others. Every message is highlighted, read out loud, and elaborated on for the court. The audience can almost feel the tension crackling in the air, the weight of betrayal pressing down on every member of the Brown family. Suddenly, a new bombshell sends shockwaves through the room. A message suggesting that one of the wives may have been secretly collecting evidence against the others, preparing for a strategic move that could completely upend the balance of power. Robyn lets out an audible gasp, hands over her face. Kody's fingers drum nervously against the bench. Christine leans forward, curiosity and calculation mingling in her gaze. Janelle's lips part slightly, as if she can't quite wrap her head around what she's just been told, and Meri's eyes widen, heart racing with disbelief. The session escalates as emotional confrontations go off. Christine strides forward, voice firm and steady, demanding to know from Kody about the decisions that he had maintained he was oblivious to. Robyn cuts in, her voice trembling with emotion, defending Kody while trying to convey her hurt and fear. Janelle speaks up softly of her heartbreak, her eyes welling up in tears, while Meri finally puts words to terrors she has silently harbored for years. The courtroom becomes a stage of raw emotion, with every gesture, every glance, and every word carrying immense weight. Whispered side conversations, subtle glares, and quiet sobs punctuate the proceedings. The viewers feel the tension as if they were seated among the spectators, holding their breath at each little revelation that comes up. The last few minutes of this session are explosive. Christine reveals one piece of evidence that is so damning it murmurs around the courtroom. Kody shifts uncomfortably. Robyn's hands shake while she dabs at her eyes, and for the first time, Janelle's shoulders slump with the emotional burden. Meri's lips press tightly together as she contemplates what this means and realizes that a lot of things will never be the same after today. Cliffhanger. As the session ends and the gavel strikes, a whisper between Christine and an unexpected visitor hints at a revelation so shocking it could unravel the entire family dynamic. Who is involved, and how will this secret change the course of the courtroom drama? The courtroom feels smaller today, as if the walls themselves are closing in under the weight of Brown family drama. The air is thick with anticipation, and each heartbeat seems to echo louder than the last. Kody Brown sits rigidly at the front, palms sweating, fingers drumming against the polished wood of the bench. His usual composure has been fractured by the revelations of the previous sessions. Robyn, seated closest to him, fidgets nervously with the edges of her notebook, eyes darting between Kody, Christine, and the judge. Christine sits straight-backed, her posture like a blade, poised, precise, intimidating, and her gaze seems to cut through everyone in the room. Janelle's calm exterior is trembling at the edges, hands clasped tightly in her lap, while Meri's fingers tap incessantly, betraying a nervous energy that refuses to be concealed. The judge enters, his robes rustling, and the gavel strikes with an authoritative crack. "Court is now in session," he says. Words reverberate around the room, and the tension tightens like a coiled spring. Every eye is fixed on the front, every ear attuned to the next words that could further unravel the fragile Brown family facade. First called to the stand is a former legal advisor who managed some of the family's private and financial doings. He approaches the stand cautiously, adjusting the microphone, and the room leans in immediately. Sensing the weight of what it is about to hear, "I have worked closely with this family for years," he starts, his voice firm but laced with nervousness. "And while many things seemed perfectly ordinary on the surface, there have always been decisions made behind closed doors, decisions that some members were never meant to know about." Kody shifts uncomfortably in his seat, his fingers tightening on the edge of the bench as his eyes narrow, and the slow revelation of the witness's words unfolds a series of hidden truths. Robyn bites her lip as emotion begins to rise in her chest. Christine leans forward, eyes glinting with sharp calculation, as if weighing every word to assess its effect on her position. Janelle exhales softly, her shoulders tense, while Meri is taut, her face pale as she listens intently. The witness lays out a series of events: hidden financial transactions, covert meetings, secret alliances. Each revelation lands like a blow. The room's energy takes on an electric quality, part disbelief, part tension, with a vein of emotional turbulence. Whispered exchanges ripple through the courtroom benches, though the judge's glare keeps the murmurs to a minimum. As the testimony unfolds, the attention shifts to Christine, who rises and begins her cross-examination. Her voice is calm, but carries with it a subtle edge that demands attention. "Can you confirm that some decisions were deliberately kept from certain family members?" she asks, her gaze fixed on the witness. The witness hesitates briefly before nodding. "Yes, certain decisions were made with selective knowledge in mind, not necessarily for the benefit of all." Robyn lets out a sharp exhalation and claims her hand over her mouth in surprise. Kody's jaw tightens, a slight quivering, revealing the strain of the building revelations. Janelle slightly leans forward, with her hands grasping her lap as if ready for the impact. Meri remains tense, a silent storm of fear and apprehension in her eyes. The witness then drops a bomb. One of the wives had been quietly compiling evidence against the others, tracking financial movements, personal messages, and private meetings. The courtroom gasps collectively. Christine's eyes widen, a flicker of rare vulnerability crossing her calculated expression. Kody's hands clench. Robyn squeezes her notebook, and Janelle's breath catches in her throat. Meri's hands shake as she clings to the folder she holds, mentally racing through the implications. The attorney rises, voice measured but incisive. Your Honor, the evidence presented will indicate that not only were decisions made in secrecy, but there has been active surveillance and documentation of family members' actions without their knowledge. This is not just an issue of trust. It goes to the very structure of the family, including custody and financial integrity. The judge leans forward, eyes narrowing as he absorbs every bit of the information. The room shrinks as the words hang in the air. Kody shifts uncomfortably in his seat, his jaw tight and his hands gripping tightly onto the bench. Robyn's eyes gleam, and she whispers to herself, "How could this happen?" Christine's arms fold over her chest, and a slight smile creeps across her face. A symptom that she is ready to manipulate the revelations to her advantage. Janelle's lips press tightly together while Meri leans back, pale and wordless. Then, out of the blue, the witness introduces a number of emails showing there was a secret agreement by some family members to deliberately exclude others in financial and personal decisions. The room is silent, the tension thick and heavy, like a storm about to break. Robyn gasps softly, trying to wrap her brain around the betrayal. Kody shifts uncomfortably, looking at his wives for some semblance of understanding or support. Christine's eyes gleam with calculating cunning, while Janelle presses her palms together and exhales shakily. Meri leans forward slightly, her face pale as she takes in each word as if preparing for impact. Then, the attorney pushes the session further by asking the witness about motives. Why would these actions be concealed? The witness hesitates, then replies, to maintain control, to protect certain alliances, to manipulate outcomes. The words hit the courtroom like a physical blow. Robyn's shoulders sag slightly, hands pressed against her mouth to stifle a sob. Kody's eyes flicker in a nervous manner, whereas Christine's calculated composure masks an internal storm. Janelle's eyes shine as she takes in the implications, and Meri's fingers tremble against her folder. Everyone feels the weight of this revelation in the room. This is where the tension comes to a head, when a recorded phone call between two of the wives, discussing financial and personal matters behind the others' backs, is brought in as evidence. The courtroom falls silent. The moment is almost suffocating. Robyn's eyes widen, and her tears are imminent. Kody leans back, his face pale and tight with worry. Christine's lips curl into a subtle, confident smile, while Janelle's composure cracks slightly, her shoulders tense. Meri's jaw tightens, absorbing a betrayal she never saw coming. The witness continues, detailing actions and decisions that could dramatically affect custody, finances, and familial loyalty. With each revelation, tension mounts, creating a courtroom filled with anxiety, anticipation, and raw emotion. Whispers ripple across benches, cameras capturing every reaction, glance, and twitch of the hand or shift of the eye. It's building to a crescendo now, as the witness outlines evidence that indicates a secret alliance aimed at solidifying control within the family. The courtroom responds immediately. Robyn's hand shoots to her mouth. Kody leans forward in disbelief. Christine's expression sharp and calculating. Janelle bites her lip to restrain a sob, and Meri's eyes widen in incredulity. The tension is palpable. It feels as though every heartbeat in the room sinks to the rising storm of revelations. The attorney ends the testimony with the sharp statement, "Your Honor, these revelations do not just affect family dynamics, they redefine them. Decisions made in secrecy, alliances hidden from view, and betrayals carefully orchestrated have set the stage for an emotional and legal confrontation, the likes of which this family has never faced." When the gavel strikes for recess, the Brown family rises to their feet, each navigating the emotional tides. Out in the hall, speculation sweeps through the hallways. Christine shares urgent whispers with an unexpected visitor. Kody's eyes follow the interaction nervously. Robyn clutches her notebook tightly, while Janelle exhales slowly. Meri stands still, pale and tense. The storm from the courtroom continues just beyond the walls, leaving every viewer hanging on the edge of their seat, desperate to know what's going to happen next. Cliffhanger. As the doors close, a whispered conversation between two wives reveals a betrayal so severe that it may shatter the entire family structure. Which alliances will hold? And who will be standing when the next session begins?